So it's been said before, not by me, but it has been said before, that you need to be careful the means that you use to accomplish your ends. Because in due time, the means will become an end in and of themselves. And I don't think we can see this more clearly and more evidently than with the modern Republican Party. Let me explain. So, Republicans, and conservatives more broadly, have used obstruction as a tool to achieve their goals for so long that it's difficult to even trace back to where it starts. Mitch McConnell, for example, has presided over the 2 longest federal government shutdowns in our nation's history. Shutdowns that were instigated and maintained by Republicans. The impeachment of Bill Clinton, led by Newt Gingrich, was explicitly an obstructive measure. It was Ronald Reagan who said, during his first inauguration, that government is not the solution to our problems, government is the problem. Even the predecessors of the modern conservative movement, people like Strom Thurmond, people like George Wallace, explicitly used obstruction as a measure to prevent civil rights from going through. And thank fuck they failed. A little fun fact for people who are interested in knowing, Strom Thurmond, when the Civil Rights Act passed, stopped being a Democrat and started being a Republican. So when people tell you there was no Democratic switch, just point to Strom Thurmond. He literally switched parties. Obstruction as a means to an end is built into the foundation of the Republican Party. It is not something they do accidentally, and it is not just something that they do deliberately and frequently. It is something that they have been doing more deliberately and more frequently as time goes by. This is something that has been happening since at least the 80s. Longer if you consider the ideological forebears of the modern conservative movement, the people who tried to stop the civil rights movement, and the people who tried to stop Reconstruction in the South. Bearing that in mind, we can make sense of 2 things. The first is the manner in which the Republican Party has gotten more extreme over time. We can observe that as a matter of function, that extremism has manifested in a dissolution of the federal government, up to and including the Republican Party starting and Mitch McConnell presiding over the 2 largest government shutdowns in United States history. I would note here that business interests that support the Republican Party have historically supported dysfunction in the federal government. I'm pretty sure I made a video as to why that is. The second, and more important thing that we can make sense of is this. The reason that the Republican Party couldn't properly condemn the riots that occurred on the 6th, the reason that they couldn't impeach Trump, is because violent fascist insurrection is a logical outgrowth of their own willful dysfunction. And they know that. And some of them probably want to do it again. So yeah, this is another video about Trump getting away with staging a fascist insurrection at our nation's capital. And while it would be easy to say Trump is bad and the Senate has betrayed their oath, or of course they couldn't convict, they're all capitalist scumbags, I wanted to add something more to the conversation. And the thing that I wanted to add was not just to say that getting rid of Trump will not get rid of Trumpism, but to demonstrate why that is. Trump and his brand of fascism are a logical outgrowth of how the Republican Party has operated for decades, as many people before me have noted. And something that I want to stress is that this isn't just an ideological problem. This isn't just a racial problem. This isn't just a policy problem. This is a holistic problem with the Republican Party and with the ruling class in the United States in general. So the thing that we can ultimately take away from this is that the rot that Trump represents was never a bug in the Republican Party. It was a feature. It was always a feature. And if allowed to continue, it will get worse. And the Democrats have shown that they cannot and they will not rein in the Republican Party, so it's down to us. We, the American people, have to rein in the Republican Party. And I'm gonna tell you how to do that. So the first, the primary, and the most important thing you can do to help rein in the GOP is to confront them at every opportunity. I don't have to tell you that. Any person active in politics can tell you that. What I will do is tell you to go much, much further than most. Ask, nay, demand at every opportunity that Republican officials and even Democratic officials denounce Trump, denounce the fascist insurrection at the Capitol, denounce the apocalyptic and fascist QAnon movement, and denounce fascism more generally. And don't let them worm their way around it either, which they will try to do. And you know what? I'm gonna tell you to take it one step further. Don't just badger Republican officials, badger their secretaries, badger the people operating phone lines. Ask them what it's like to work for a fascist. Ask them if they're getting paid enough to wash all that blood off their hands. If anyone tells you that's not appropriate, tell them that's just too bad. You've got heat to give to the nearest member of the GOP, and if it's not an elected official, then it's going to be whoever is working for them. And if those people continue to protest, if they continue to tell you that you're being inappropriate, if they plead with you that they don't deserve this kind of abuse, tell them tough shit. The GOP are actively working to destroy the United States. They are an existential threat to the Constitution, the laws that this nation of laws abide by, and to all those people whom abide by those laws. Being sympathetic to the GOP is one thing, but actively working with them means actively working to undermine the United States. And I live here. Almost everyone I know and care about lives here. I don't want this country to be undermined, least of all just so some rich fuckers can get a little bit richer. But our goal can't just be to unseat members of the fascist GOP. There will always be people willing to play ball, which means that as long as there are fascists in power, there will always be more fascists. Our goal has to be to create enough instability in the GOP to keep them from mounting a political offense, to keep their primary tactic from working. And to that end, just going after single politicians isn't enough. We have to go after the GOP as an institution. I've talked before about attacking the GOP as an institution, and about how the GOP and the DNC are both corporations operated by unelected bureaucrats. And I've spoken before about the need to hold these people specifically accountable for the actions of the elected officials that they seek out and that they get elected. The Republican Party, and the Democratic Party for that matter, are typically split up into a series of branches, based on their location and the area that they govern. There is almost always a series of county branches who report to the major state branch, and every state branch reports to the RNC headquarters at 301 1st Street in Washington, D.C. Now, Illinois has a Central Republican Committee, but as best as I can tell, they don't have a central headquarters. They might have had one at one point, but it seems to have been shut down. But every county does have a headquarters, including the county where I live, Sangamon County. In fact, Sangamon County headquarters are located at 1132 East Sangamon Avenue, here in Springfield. I could go there, right now. If you live in Springfield, you could go down there too, right now. And you could demand to speak to... Just a sec. I want to say Diane Hardwick? How is the entire Sangamon County RCC only one person? That's fucked! Oh, the chairwoman died, that's how. That's kind of sad. But it's still fucked! My point being that these are not just ephemeral, intangible systems that we are fighting. They are systems, but they are systems that are operated by people. And those people operate those systems by congregating in certain places. You can go to those places. You can confront those people. And in a lot of places, these systems are strained to their breaking point. If you were to remove a handful of people, if someone were to convince Diane Hardwick to resign or radically change her policies, there would not be a Republican Party in Sangamon County. There would still be a state branch, and there would still be various county branches, but one link in their chain would be broken. And that is how we're going to have to oppose these systems. People have been saying that you have to start at the top and work your way down, but that's bullshit. Unseating the king does not get rid of the king's cronies, and unseating the king's cronies does not prevent war profiteers or traitors from putting new cronies into power. If you want to fundamentally change the way things operate, you have to start at the foundation. And that doesn't just mean focusing on local officials before moving on to federal officials. That means changing the people who decide who gets to run in the first place. And having said that, it's clear to me now that there's a whole hell of a lot that I didn't know about this process until I looked it up. That's one of the reasons that this got so far away from me. There were certain specific things that took so long to look up, and the answers that I found weren't exactly what I thought they would be. I'm going to link a Google Doc I made in the description of this video and in the pinned comment. It contains every state GOP website and the websites to the capital area GOP, the county that the capital is in. Not all of them had websites, but as many as I could find. If you live in the US, I want this to give you a jumping off point to breaking the chains in your area. There's all kinds of valuable information on these websites, from phone numbers, to addresses, to the names of specific people, to events that you can disrupt. There is something that I cannot stress enough. The Republican Party is an existential threat to the United States, to our laws, to our people. And so the Republican Party, as it is now, has to be destroyed. We are left bereft of any other meaningful option to rein them in. And this is something that the people of the United States are going to have to do ourselves. I'm done. Regular links are in the description and in a pinned comment, probably. Give me some money if you can spare it, but don't feel obligated. And take care of yourselves, please, please. I'm gonna have to do a follow-up to this.